Hello internet users, and welcome back to another thought-provoking video that explores human curiosity like you've never seen before. Just kidding, I'm doing something stupid in Pokemon again. So on my gameplay channel, I've been doing a ridiculous playthrough in Pokemon Crystal, where I have to beat the entire game using only a team of 6 Smeargles. And ever since I started that nonsense, I've gotten a ton of requests from people to do all sorts of other challenges. Among those suggestions, one of the most popular was the idea of completing a Pokemon game using only a team of Dittos. And just think about how insane that would be. Ditto can only use Transform, so every battle you'd have no choice but to try and win using your opponent's moveset, which now only has 5 PP for each move. On top of that, Ditto copies the stats of whatever it transforms into, except HP. So no matter how much grinding you do, the only benefit would be to your max health. But at the same time, I still think that sounds just a bit too easy with a full party of them. So how about I make it a little more interesting? What if instead of 6, I had only 1 Ditto to work with instead? Also, I can't use items in battle, because that's just a pretty lame way to play the game. As for the game, let's go with Ditto's homeland in Generation 1. Today, we'll find out if it's possible to go from start to finish using only this 1 Ditto to overcome every necessary battle throughout the game. Before we start though, I'm sure you viewers have a few questions that I need to first get out of the way. Some of you are probably wondering how I'm going to even have a Ditto at the start of the game. Well, it's simple. Through use of a cheating device, I can modify my chosen starter Pokemon to be a level 5 Ditto instead of a Charmander. Don't worry though, that's the only instance of cheating I'm going to do, as it's necessary to even set up this situation in the first place. The golden rule is that I can only use this 1 Ditto to battle with. However, as I'm sure you're all aware, Ditto cannot learn HM moves, so I will have to catch other Pokemon in order to progress at certain points. There are a few buildings and dungeons that require an HM user to be in my party, so during those instances, I'm going to make sure this Pokemon is left fainted so that it cannot be used in battle. If I had any other conscious Pokemon with me, I could easily just switch to it in order to reset Ditto's transform. Doing so would defeat the entire purpose of this challenge, so I'm doing this to make sure it cannot occur, even by accident. These are my rules, and that's what I'll be sticking to over the course of this playthrough. So without further ado, let's set it up and begin the challenge. Alright, now the beginning of the game is simple enough. It doesn't matter if I win or lose the first battle against my rival, and the second one is entirely optional. Even with a bit of grinding, it's not worth the time to take down his Squirtle using the power of his own Pidgey. I just end up dying from struggle recoil damage before I can win. I simply do the errand with Oak's Parcel and move on to the Viridian Forest as soon as I can. This place isn't very fun. This guy sends out a Weedle, which means I have no choice but to fight with Poison Sting and String Shot. Both, of course, only have 5 PP each after Transform is used. It's a pretty sad day when the first bug catcher in a Pokemon game is giving me trouble. Luckily, it's possible to skip over most of the trainers here. The only required fight is the very last one. This guy here has a level 9 Weedle. With a bit of grinding and luck with critical hits, I was able to take him down. Next up is Fuchsia City. In order to advance to the next route, all I have to do is defeat Brock. This, however, turned out to be quite the obstacle. When fighting Brock, I quickly realized that beating him wasn't going to be so simple. All his Geodude knows is Tackle and Defense Curl, not exactly what you want to use against 2 Rock-type Pokemon. Also, keep in mind that in Generation 1, Struggle counted as a normal-type move, and is affected by type resistances, meaning that it is not very effective against his Pokemon here. At this point, it seemed as though my only option was to grind to an absurd level in order to last through the battle. However, I actually managed to come up with an easier solution. Like I said earlier, when it uses Transform, Ditto copies every stat of the target Pokemon, except for HP. But if I go into the Viridian Forest, waste Transform's PP on wild Metapods and Kakunas, then that means I can go into Brock's gym fight using Struggle from the get-go. And now instead of using the attack power of his Geodude, I'm hitting him with the actual strength of my higher level Ditto. Even if Struggle is not very effective, I'm dealing more than enough damage to plow through this fight. Who would have thought that in order to unlock Ditto's true potential, I had to get rid of the one thing that it's known for? With the first badge claimed, I've discovered a neat little trick I can do with my lone Pokemon. However, this strategy isn't always the best option. You see, this is how the recoil damage of Struggle works in Pokemon. In Generation 1, you take half of the damage that was dealt to the opponent with a move. In Generation 2 and 3, you take 1/4. And in Generation 4 and onward, the recoil is equal to 1/4 of the user's max HP. So attempting to use nothing but Struggle out in the field is a quick way to knock yourself out. Most of the time, it's much easier to just use Transform. That being said, how the battle goes is still entirely up to whatever the first Pokemon it is that your opponent sends out. As I was making my way through Mount Moon, I found that this challenge really flips the game's design around. Pokemon that are meant to be more difficult for this point in the game are easier to take down, due to the assortment of moves they have, and Pokemon that are weaker become an absolute chore, especially when the trainer has more than 2. But with enough perseverance, I eventually made it to Cerulean City, where the next important battle takes place. For the next rival fight, he leads off with Pidgeotto, which is fairly good for taking on his team of 4. After that, I did a bit of training in the route to the north to prepare for the second gym battle. Misty is also a pretty annoying battle. Her Staryu only knows Tackle and Water Gun, and it's a guarantee that you'll be running out of PP while against her Starmie. Although I came close, the recoil knocked me out before I could win. After that, I tried my Struggle strategy against her. This time we both got KO'd at the same time, which still counts as a loss for the player. So at that point, I just continued on in the game, leveling up in areas around Vermilion City. On my third try, I got an incredibly lucky critical hit, which made the rest of the battle a walk in the park. Now, I'm sure by this point you all have a pretty good idea of what my strategies are and how I deal with the regular trainers. So for the sake of this video not going on forever, we're going to start jumping ahead to some of the bigger battles throughout the game. The next one is the rival battle on the SS Anne. This one was pretty simple. His first Pokemon, Pidgeotto, gives you the moves and power to make quick work of his team like before. Now we move on to Lieutenant Surge. Just a reminder, I need a Pokemon that knows Cut in order to get inside this gym. And to make sure I keep to my rules, the Farfetch that I brought with me is fainted, so it cannot be used in battle. Despite my high level, the fact that his first Pokemon is Voltorb makes this a little tricky. All I have to work with are Tackle, Screech, and Sonic Boom. And remember, because I'm transforming at the start, my opponent will always get a free move against me. His Voltorb and Pikachu are simple enough, but the real concern is his Raichu. I got really close, but I lost on my first attempt. For the second try, I used the Struggle strategy and just barely had enough HP left when I defeated Raichu. After some tedious battles through Rock Tunnel, I eventually reached the rival battle in Lavender Town. Once again, he starts off with a Pidgeotto. This fight is pretty much luck. The darn thing always hits me with Sand Attack, and in total, I only have 10 PP for my damage-dealing moves. All you can do is hope that you land enough hits, otherwise you're going to have to spend 10 turns exhausting the other 2 moves in order to use Struggle. Now we're on to the first encounter with Giovanni at the Rocket Hideout. His first Pokemon is an Onix, which is both a blessing and a curse. Although it's not really a powerhouse, none of Giovanni's Pokemon have any moves that are strong against it. With a bit of patience, I was able to whittle down his entire party's health. My next destination is the Celadon City Gym. Considering that most of the Pokemon here are grass and poison type that mostly have moves of the same type, I don't even bother using Transform and go in with the Struggle strategy from the get-go. I had just enough HP to last through the battle with Erica. With the 4th badge earned, I now need to climb the Pokemon Tower in order to save Mr. Fuji and obtain the Pokeflute. This particular area is a bit unique when it comes to this challenge. The majority of the Pokemon that you fight here are Ghastlies and Haunters, all of which know the move Nightshade. Nightshade deals damage equal to the user's level, so my Ditto can take down opponents quite quickly here. Reaching and defeating the Rocket Grunts on the top floor, it doesn't take very long. Now that I've got the Pokeflute, it's time to head to Fuchsia City for the next badge. Because of the types of Pokemon the trainers here use, I figure it's once again easier to go in right away using the Struggle... What? The game won't let me use Struggle. Ordinarily, all you have to do is hit the fight option without any PP, and the game will automatically use it. But here I can't do anything. I can't attack, I can't run, I can't switch to anything. I know I'm technically breaking my own rules here, but I don't really have a choice but to waste turns by using the Pokeflute, otherwise I'm just stuck. I have to do this every turn in order to let myself get knocked out by this Drowsy. Well, that did work at first, but then it used Disable, which caused the game to be permanently stuck on this text box. Since the game can't decide whether or not I'm out of moves to use, my guess is that it has no idea what to do when Disable is used on me. Apparently I just soft-locked the game. I wasn't even trying to this time. And of course, my last save was made at the Pokemon Tower, so it looks like I'm going to have to do a few things again. After replaying to this point, I was able to use Struggle against this trainer like normal. I guess this is just another instance of Gen 1 just being Gen 1. Anyway, now I need to get ready for the battle against Koga. In order to get some fast EXP, I decide to use the Struggle strategy against some of the trainers on a nearby route and... Are you kidding me right now? It happened again! I don't understand how, but it did! Alright, now this is where this run took a completely unexpected turn. No matter what I do now, whenever I enter into battle without any PP, this glitch occurs. I've tried turning the game on and off, but that didn't solve the issue. Now I know for a fact that I used the Struggle strategy when I was replaying the part in the Pokemon Tower, so this can only mean that there is something in or near Fuchsia City that is causing this to occur. As a little experiment to try and understand what's going on with my game, I took one of my HM slaves, a Nidoking, and I exhausted all of the PP for his moves as well. To my surprise, Nidoking uses Struggle like normal, but even if I switch to Ditto in the same battle, it still can't do anything. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, my Ditto forgot how to use Struggle. I tried a few other things like putting Ditto into the PC, leaving it at the daycare, giving it a rare candy, but no matter what I do, this glitch seems to be here to stay. As much as it sucks, I don't really have much of a choice but to continue the challenge like this. So after a lot of grinding, I challenge Koga. This is not a fun fight. His first Pokemon is a Coughing, whose moves are not going to be able to deal much damage to his own Pokemon. On top of that, they have moves like Smokescreen and Minimize, so every turn all you can do is just hope that you can land a hit. Another curious thing to note here is that Ditto is still able to use Struggle while transformed. With a bit of luck, I eventually get enough critical hits to reach his last Pokemon, Weezing, and when you know it, it uses Self-Destruct and takes me down. Considering how luck-dependent this battle is, for the time being, I decide to head to the Sylph building in Saffron City. Taking care of Team Rocket here will level me up a little, so I'll stand a better chance against Koga later. The first important battle here is against my rival. His first Pokemon is Pidgeot, but unfortunately, its move pool leaves a bit to be desired. At my Ditto's current level, its HP is able to keep it alive through the fight. Now we're on to the second encounter with Giovanni. This is another difficult one. He leads off with Nidorino, who does not have the moves to deal with the rest of his Pokemon. Oh, and in case you weren't aware, in Generation 1 games, Focus Energy is bugged. Instead of increasing your critical hit rate, it actually lowers it instead. Giovanni has 4 Pokemon in total, and I can barely make it past his second. All I can really do is hope for critical hits. That Fury Attack always hits 5 times, and that Poison Sting poisons some of his Pokemon. After quite a few attempts, I managed to make it to his Nidoqueen, but by then I'm only 1 hit away from fainting, and my options are limited. But that wasn't going to stop me. I proceeded to throw myself into this fight over and over until I finally got some positive results. As you can probably tell by my level, I was trying to beat him for a while. Alright, now before anything else, it's time to pay Koga another visit. It still took another handful of tries, but this time I had the HP to survive his Weezing using Self-Destruct. Now that that's over with, we're going straight to the next gym battle against Sabrina. Fun fact, this girl is the very reason that I didn't attempt this challenge in Pokemon Yellow. You see, her team is very different in that game compared to Red and Blue. Her first Pokemon is an Abra that only knows Teleport and Flash. Here she starts with a Kadabra, who only has Psychic-type moves for dealing damage. Incredibly, on my first try, I take down both her Kadabra and Mr. Mime with critical hits. And obviously her Venomoth is no trouble at all. Why does she even have that thing anyway? Wouldn't it have made more sense to give her a Hypno or something? However, trouble starts when she sends out her Alakazam. Due to how AI works in this generation, Alakazam will do nothing but use Recover over and over, since its other moves would not be very effective against me. And just another reminder, enemy Pokemon in this generation do not consume PP, so that means it will heal itself infinitely. Using Disable wasn't much help, and it isn't long until I'm forced to use Struggle. Eventually, I get another critical hit, which takes it down from full health. I'm sure you're all noticing a pattern here. The further I get into the game, the more critical hits are pretty much necessary to make it through some battles. It's kind of unfortunate that most of it's becoming just a game of chance here. With another badge claimed, it's time to head to Cinnabar Island. The second last gym battle is against Blaine. His first Pokemon is Growlithe, who is definitely pretty useful here. Use Agility to boost my speed and Leer to lower his defenses, and I can plow through his team with Takedown. Though I actually lost on my first attempt, something weird happened here. When he sent out his Rapidash, he used a Super Potion on it while it was at full health. I also noticed that it happened after I attacked that turn too. Unless I'm mistaken, wasn't the opponent using an item always supposed to have priority? Also, this happened again when he sent out his Arcanine. I don't even know what's going on in this playthrough anymore. Was this always a thing in Gen 1? Because I don't remember anything like this ever happening to me before. Is it because I modified my starter at the beginning? Is this some kind of side effect of that? I really don't know. Anyways, with Blaine defeated, there's just one more badge to get. Heading back to Viridian City, I'm gonna see my friend Giovanni once more. His first Pokemon, Rhyhorn, is a challenge to work with. At first glance, having the one-hit KO move Horn Drill seems like a blessing. But in a Generation 1 game, these kinds of moves will fail if the target Pokemon is faster than the user. Obviously, since I'm copying this Rhyhorn's stats, we tie, and I can use the move to get him out of the picture. But that also works the other way around, and he can just end the battle on the first turn while I'm transforming. Now from here, I figured I could use Tail Whip to lower his Pokemon's defenses to my advantage. But every time he sends out another Pokemon, he uses a Guard spec, preventing me from lowering their stats. His Dugtrio is also a big problem, as it's faster than me and can deal a lot of damage with Dig. Also, did you know that he can use items on it while it's underground? I didn't know that. I don't like that. By the way, his Nidoqueen can potentially poison me with Poison Sting and paralyze with Body Slam. If either of those two things happen, it's pretty much a guaranteed loss from there. But as if that wasn't bad enough, his last Pokemon, Rhydon, knows Fissure. So even if I get good luck against all of his other Pokemon, he can end everything with just a single move. This is without a doubt the most difficult battle so far. In order to win, everything has to go exactly a certain way. It's nothing but luck here. Even after reaching the max level, and still suffering defeat after defeat, I got really close, so I know it can be done. Eventually, after countless attempts, I got the result I wanted, with just a shred of HP left. With all 8 badges in my possession, it's time to head to the Pokemon League. But first, my rival isn't going to let me head there until I battle him. You'd probably think that at level 100, I'd have little trouble here, but that wasn't the case. Once again, he leads with Pidgeot. However, half of its moves are useless here, and the remaining 2 aren't enough to bring down his entire team, especially since a Rhyhorn is a part of it. It's near impossible to get through this battle without struggle, so I have no choice but to waste all of Agility and Whirlwind at the beginning, hope that he doesn't hit me too much in those 10 turns, and then pray that RNG gives me a critical hit or two before I run out of PP. After a while, I finally managed to win, even despite him using a random potion at the last second there. Alright, now this is the final stretch of the game. Victory Road was a walk in the park. I have no need for EXP anymore, so I just avoided the majority of the trainers there. Once through, I reached the Indigo Plateau, where the Elite Four are waiting for me and my little friend. First up, I'm paying a visit to my absolute favorite person in this game, Lorelei. This time, I actually intend to beat her. It was during this fight that my luck really turned around. Before that stupid Dugong could attempt to heal itself over and over, I took it down with a critical hit. In fact, I actually got a lot of critical hits during this fight. Even if that wasn't the case, there wasn't a whole lot to be worried about here. Because Ditto transformed into Dugong, it has access to rest, so when it finally came time for her Lapras, I used the last of my PP by healing, meaning that I could finish it off easily with struggle, without worrying about any recoil. The second member of the Elite Four is Bruno. Although most of his party is fighting types, he actually has 2 Onyxes, one of which he sends out first. You might think this is a really bad situation to be in, but this is actually very good. Why? Because this Onyx knows Rage. For those unfamiliar with how this move works in Gen 1, I'll tell you right quick. Once it hits, the move will go on forever, until either the user wins the battle or is knocked out by the opponent, and while in this continuous state, the move will no longer consume PP, and their attack will increase with every hit they take. So once my Ditto transforms, all I have to do is use Harden 5 times to maximize my defense, use Rage, and his entire team will suffer a slow but sure death. Only downside is that it takes an eternity to make both of his Onyxes faint. Even his powerful Machamp can't do anything to... I was actually scared for a moment there. 2 down, 2 more to go. Agatha is going to be the next opponent. The Gengar she starts with couldn't be more perfect. I've already explained why Nightshade is really good, Confuse Ray speaks for itself, and the Hypnosis and Dream Eater combo will keep my HP filled up for most of the fight. With barely any trouble, I can take her down easily. And now it's time to take on Lance. There's definitely a lot of luck involved with this one. Because Gen 1 is Gen 1, if you KO a Pokemon with Hyper Beam, you won't have to waste the next turn recharging when the next one is sent out. By exploiting this, I make quick work of his Gyarados and 2 Dragonairs. Hydro Pump destroys his Aerodactyl, but his last Pokemon, Dragonite, is a real headache. If it wasn't for the fact that he missed his Hyper Beam here, I'd be done. At any point in this battle, you can be KO'd here and there's little you can do about it. But I won, so let's get a move on to the game's last battle. Surprise, surprise, Ditto is going to have to transform into Pidgeot. But this time, there are a few new tricks to use. Mainly, Mirror Move and Sky Attack, a 2-turn charge move. His Pidgeot isn't a problem at all, but his next Pokemon, Alakazam, is scary. It does a bit of damage with Psychic, but luckily I took it out with a single wing attack. Next up is Rhydon. Obviously all of my offensive moves are not very effective here, so I take advantage of Mirror Move and lower its defenses as it does the same to me. Once I run out of Mirror Moves though, it starts trying to use Horn Drill, but luckily I'm unable to be hit by it, and as Rhydon continues the try, I make it faint with Sky Attack. His Arcanine is no trouble at all. It wastes a turn trying to use Roar, and I one-shot it with another Sky Attack. Exeggutor goes down with 2 wing attacks, but not before getting my HP uncomfortably low. For the final Pokemon, Blastoise, it could easily finish me off with anything, but it happens to know Blizzard, a move that doesn't have the best accuracy. Because of how the AI works in this game, it attempts to only try and use Blizzard on me because it's super effective. Incredibly, it misses me twice and I'm able to land the last hit, knocking out the last Pokemon in the game. And that's it. I've beaten the first generation of Pokemon using nothing but a single Ditto. And the absolute icing on the cake? When Professor Oak walks into the room, he even acknowledges that Ditto was the Pokemon I left Palatown with. I always thought that the Pokemon he mentions was simply based on whatever Pokeball was taken, not what Pokemon was actually obtained. Fun fact. If you use cheats to leave Palatown without receiving a starter, and then beat the league, the text he says here becomes a garbled mess as a result. Overall, this challenge did not turn out like I had expected. I mean, sure, there was definitely a lot of tedious grinding I had to do just to stand a chance at certain points, but when I first went into it, I had never even considered the possibility of using Struggle as Ditto. And neither did I expect the game to glitch out and take that tactic away from me. By the way, if you're wondering, I checked after I beat the game. My Ditto is still glitched. Seriously, I don't know why this happened. Feel free to let me know if you've got the answer. Now, I love the idea of crazy self-imposed challenges, but when it comes to this Ditto playthrough, it's definitely not something I'd recommend to another person to try. I'm sure that most of you noticed that the further I got into the game, the battles just became more and more reliant on just having good luck. I'd say that the gym battle against Giovanni was the absolute worst it got. It's pretty disappointing, as I was hoping there'd be a bit more strategy involved. But hey, it's not like the game was ever designed to be played in such an absurd way anyway, so I can't fault it too much. The main reason I saw it all through to the end though, was just to really see if it could be done. When I ran the idea past other people, everyone seemed to agree that it was impossible to do. And as I'm sure some of you know by now, when it comes to hypothetical and possible Pokemon situations, I love to prove people wrong. As far as I know, I'm the first person who has ever beaten the game with this specific set of rules. Not sure if that's something to be proud of, really. And now that I have, a new question comes to mind. Can I do this in other games too? My name is Pikasprey, and thanks for watching.